What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Real Bodybuilding Podcast, and this is a solo Q&A. We are going to shoot bro chat this week, but we were a couple days late, and I wanted to get something out to you guys, so I thought it'd be fun to do a solo Q&A. I haven't done one in a little while, so I put up a Q&A post on my Instagram. I think I have like 135 questions here. I'm going to try and go through them a little faster so I can get through a lot of them. And again, I'm going to preface this always whenever I do my Q&As is I am not a scientist. I am not a guru. I am not a doctor. Whatever answers I give you are from my own personal experience in bodybuilding for the last 25 years. So with that being said, let's get started. The first question I want to address is actually pretty simple. There's a whole bunch of Bob Cicherillo drama swirling around right now because of what's going on with the commentary between him and Nick Walker. And for those of you who don't know, Bob made some comments on Jay Cutler's podcast about Nick not being good enough to be Mr. Olympia. Now, is that okay to make that criticism? Sure, he's allowed to have an opinion. Was he a little crass in the way he said things? Potentially, I think Nick took offense to it. Nick fired back, Bob fired back again, and this has been an ongoing thing now for the last week, which is cool because it's entertaining for the bodybuilding world because why not have a little bit of entertainment? But with that being said, there's a lot of commentary swirling around it that I think is, in my opinion, not really accurate. And I might have some unpopular opinions on some of this stuff that some of you may disagree with, but that's the fun of having your own opinion. So first, I want to touch on the athlete representative aspect of it. Bob has been saying for a number of years that he is the athlete representative, and he has done things over the course of however many years to act as that athlete's representative in some ways. Is it a formal position? I don't think so. I don't think the IFBB has designated him that person. I don't know if the athletes ever voted on him as that person, but I think he kind of took on that role when nobody else was. So in that regard, good on him for trying to help. And this is where I think I do agree with a lot of people. As an athlete's representative, I feel like it's your job to be a little bit unbiased when it comes to the athletes, always try and uplift them. And it's okay to have constructive criticism, but maybe touch on things in a more positive light. Like I remember, for example, I had Steve Weinberger on the podcast and we were talking about Nick Walker and if he could be Mr. Olympia. And Steve said, it's going to be a tough road for him. Now, that's a respectful way to say he could be Mr. Olympia, but it's going to be a tough road for him. I think had Bob put his commentary maybe in that regard, it would have been taken a little bit differently. But when you're on a podcast and you're joking around with people, sometimes you say things and you don't really realize what you're saying. So I kind of give him a pass for it in that regard. But at the same time, if you are the athlete's representative or want to be or claim to be, I feel like it's your job to be more positive in your responses, more constructive in your responses, and be mindful of how you approach those type of questions. Should he be stripped of the athlete's representative title? I don't think he's actually been given a formal title, so I don't think it's something he can be stripped of. If he wants to continue to help athletes and athletes want to take his help, then I think that's fine. I think if it was a formal position, look, I'm never in favor of stripping somebody of their job over something like this. I believe it would warrant a conversation. Hey, maybe you shouldn't be talking about athletes in this way. And then you kind of move on from it. This isn't the end of the world. I mean, I feel like in bodybuilding sometimes and in society in general, I feel like we've gotten a little bit amped up. There's outrage immediately for things. And I feel like it's unwarranted outrage. So yeah, he said some things. Should he be stripped of athlete representative title? He's not really given one. Should he stop doing it? If he wants to, it's up to him. Personally, I don't think it's the behavior of an athlete representative. So I guess I agree with the majority of people that I've seen in that regard. On the emceeing side of things, because Bob is also a prominent MC in the IFBB, and that's, I think, his main job. I've been seeing a lot of strip him of the MC title and get him out of the Olympia, and he's not allowed to have this kind of opinion about an athlete. Bob is not a judge. Bob is an MC. So he goes out and he announces the athletes. He keeps the show running. He fills time where he has to fill time. And whether you like Bob or don't like Bob, he's very good at his job. He's actually, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, he's a very good MC. And people have said to me, well, would you take, and there's some questions in here, like, would you take the MC job? I would not take the MC job. It's not an easy job. It looks easy, but that's only because people that are good at it, like David Bay and Bob Cicherillo and Sid, Faruqi, these guys all make it seem very easy, but it's not an easy job. And you have to have a personality and a voice for it. And you have to be witty and be able to think on your feet. And I just don't have that personality where I can go out and entertain the crowd like that. So, no, I wouldn't take that job. And that's the lesser of the two things. The main thing I want to talk about is being stripped of a position. This whole like guys coming out and, I've seen so many comments on different pages. Oh, he should be stripped. He should be banned from the Olympia. He should look, Bob is not a judge. Whatever Bob thinks about Samson, Nick, Derek, whatever, it doesn't matter. He's not a judge. He's allowed to have his opinion as long as he does his job properly and announces everybody equally and formally the way he does. I don't see why he's not allowed to have an opinion. If you're a judge and you're going out on podcasts making crass remarks about certain athletes, then maybe you should have, somebody should have a talking to you and say, look, you can't, you're a pro judge. You can't be speaking poorly about the athletes. So no, I don't think he should be stripped of his job. No, I don't think he's a bad MC because he has an opinion about one or two of the athletes. And on the plus side, like on people that do favor that kind of thing, I will say that I do still think it's a bad look. If you are an MC for the whole show, you should try to remain somewhat impartial or constructive in your criticisms. But that being said, I'm not in favor of this like cancel culture-ish, like, oh, fire him, get rid of him. That's a merit-based thing to me. If he's good at his job and the crowd likes him, which when I'm at the Arnold or I'm at the Olympia and he's talking to the crowd seems very responsive. The crowd seems to like Bob. So no, I'm not in favor of that whole like strip him of his job and get rid of him and blah, blah, blah. I feel like people have this unwarranted outrage that is a little too much. Like, what did he really say? That he doesn't think somebody can be Mr. Olympia? It's not really warranted of firing somebody. If he was a fucking, if he was embroiled in some like domestic abuse or like some actual crime, then maybe we could say, hey, we need somebody different because it's not a good image for the Olympia. But having an opinion on bodybuilding is not a reason to fire somebody from their position. So maybe I go against the grain on that one. I've seen a lot of people say that he should. I'm not really in favor of that, but that's just my opinion. So that's kind of my whole opinion on the Bob thing. I just wanted to get that out of the way because there's like a number of questions here about it. So I thought I'd just encompass the whole thing right off the bat. And we can move on to actually other questions. So I hope that kind of covers that. And in the comment section below, you guys can leave your opinions. I'm always happy to have that debate or conversation in the comment section. Okay, next question comes from Ricky the Problem. Besides J3 being John Jewett, which active open bodybuilder would you let take over your next prep and why? I saw this question yesterday and I couldn't think of an actual answer. If I think of like the top 10 bodybuilders in the world, I don't know if I trust any of them to coach me. That's not because I don't think they're very intelligent. I just think when I think of open bodybuilders, I think of machines. These guys, I've had a lot of them on my podcast and I've talked to them at length about their diets and about their training. And in an era where coaches are so popular and so important to these guys, a lot of them don't seem as detail orientated in their prep and what's going on and why it's being done. And they're more just machines. They're like, tell me what to do. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be the best in the world. And that's kind of how they act. And that's kind of how an athlete should act. If I had to pick one person, Martin seems very in tune with what he's doing. He seems very well thought out when it comes to supplementation, when it comes to gear, when it comes to diet. Martin seems to have a good handle on what's going on. James, I think, has some similar opinions to mine. And I think if he's not in the situation and he's watching somebody else, he's probably pretty good. Who else would I look at? I think those two are the first two that come to mind. I'm sure if I sat down and actually like parsed out who is a good coach and who isn't, I could probably come up with some more names. But listen, most of the guys that I think are good coaches now, because coaching is such a all-encompassing thing now, that most of the people that I think are good coaches are not active bodybuilders because it's a full-time job. So if I was looking at somebody that was an ex-bodybuilder, I would look at somebody like a Justin Compton, uh, Chris Tuttle, and I'm talking about open pros. Obviously, Ben was a bodybuilder, but as an amateur. But if I'm talking about open pros, like my brain would first go to Justin Compton or Chris Tuttle. But listen, the list is long, and just because somebody doesn't spout off online that they know everything doesn't mean they actually don't know everything. So there's probably a whole bunch of people I could use, but Martin and James are probably the first ones that come to mind off the top of my head. Saifullah Butt says, name the top five bodybuilders who didn't perform up to their potential. Fouad Abiad, number one. Listen, there are a lot of bodybuilders that did very well, but could have been better. There are extenuating circumstances like mental aspects to bodybuilding. There are outside influences like marriage and kids and things that have held a number of bodybuilders back. I wonder to myself, I put myself in that category because I know my own history. It's hard to talk about other people because you don't know all of things going on in their life. But one of the people that comes to mind is Cedric. And the only reason I say Cedric is because Cedric was a lot like me in the mental aspect of things. He had trouble coming into shows, and he was still that phenomenal. Can you imagine if he was a more relaxed, self-confident, maybe not as anxious person? Who knows how amazing he could have been. So that's one that really like pops out of my mind. But again, that's only because I know him. So I kind of know the background. There's probably a whole bunch of other bodybuilders that if you knew their details of their life, whether it was wife or kids or job or, financial issues or whatever, you could probably pick out a whole bunch of people that might have been way better had they had it kind of smooth sailing. One of the things you see with great bodybuilders is they tend to have a good team around them and tend to be able to get through adversity by using that team. I think of Jay Cutler. I think of Phil Heath. I think of Ronnie Coleman. Like these people have good teams around them and they're able to really flourish and achieve their full potential. I can't really think of somebody I think of off the top of my head is probably Lionel Bayecki. And this is going back, obviously, Lionel's been retired for a number of years, but I think Lionel could have been a phenomenal bodybuilder. I mean, his physique in some shots, like I remember back in the day, they would compare him to Dexter, and he was a kind of a blend of Dexter and Flex, but he never lived up to that potential. Whether it was, I've heard stories of him having a tougher time dieting or extenuating circumstances in his private life. So, someone like Victor comes to mind. Victor has had a lot of things go on in his life that I don't know for sure because I don't know Victor like that, but I could imagine were a hindrance to him being as great as he could have been. Because if you look at just his physique and the potential of his physique, it's a Mr. Olympia physique, right? So you got to think there must have been something else holding him back. And I think it's a knee-jerk reaction for bodybuilding fans to immediately point to that guy doesn't work hard enough, or that guy is lazy, or that guy's this, or that guy's that. When in fact, they may be working just as hard as other people, but it could be two things. It could be there's circumstances that are interfering with what they're trying to do, or two, there are some bodybuilders that if their house was burning down, they would still be like channeled in. And there are other bodybuilders when those things happen, cortisol levels go up, they miss a meal, they miss this, they miss that, and it starts to affect the way they look. So not everybody's the same. So that's why sometimes when I see people say like, oh, that guy's lazy because he wasn't in shape or whatever, I'm like, you don't know the whole story. Could be a lot of things going on in their life that you don't know about. So those are just a few of the names that come to mind off the top of my head. I think another bodybuilder that maybe didn't reach full potential. I can't really pinpoint anybody right now. I know what fans would say. Like, I know fans would say, like, oh, we could have, like, off the top of my head, I think of Chris Cormier. Chris Cormier reached second in the world, but he had such an incredible physique. Could he have been Mr. Olympia? Was there anything holding him back? Did he reach that final bit of conditioning that he needed to reach to really put himself in that top category of Mr. Olympia? I don't know. He lost, I think, two or three Arnolds to Jay. And to me, looking back at them, they were mainly because of, I know one of them for sure was mainly because of condition. So you can pinpoint some athletes in history that you think had a glimmer of, oh, this person could be Mr. Olympia. And I'm not putting myself in that category, even though I mentioned myself first. But they just never really reached that full potential that we expect from them. Not that they didn't reach their own personal potential, but the potential that we expect from them, which is totally different. Somebody could reach their full potential, and they may not have any extenuating circumstances, and they may not have any problems with their own issues. They may be going full bore, and that's just the most they can get out of their physique. That is also possible. So, but as far as the fans' expectation, there are probably those few guys that I look at and think that could be a Mr. Olympia physique if just this one thing. So those stand out to me in my mind right now. As far as modern day, like guys competing right now, I think everybody's living up to their potential. I think Andrew, I think Andrew fits into that category right now where people are like, that could be Mr. Olympia if, and they can pinpoint like one or two things that he needs to do. Maybe a Hunter Labrada. Hunter Labrada looks like, man, this guy, he was like when he came out on a Friday night at the Olympia, fuck, he was incredible. So people are like, just a couple tweaks and this person could be in that top category. So anyway, I don't want to go on too long. I'm kind of stretching out these answers, so I'll try and go a little bit quicker. Coach Pat, IFBB Pro says, what prep would you say was the hardest prep you've ever done and why that specific one? The Dennis James prep for the 2014 Dallas Europa. Dennis got me the most shredded I ever got in my life. And I remember just starving. And I've told the story before on the podcast. We got to a point where I was so hungry. I got in my car and went for a drive and called him. And I'm like, Dennis, I'm going to break. And I don't, like when I diet, I don't break. Like I'm solid. And I was like, I'm going to go fucking eat a pizza. I need to eat something. It was so, I can't remember ever being so hungry as when I worked with Dennis. And it might have been the peptides we were using. I know there was a peptide we were using at the time, and I don't remember what it was, but it actually increased your appetite. And I think the blend of peptides he had me using is potentially why I got so shredded. But at the same time, I've never been so hungry in my life. And I remember Dennis told me to go home and eat a plate of lettuce with mustard on it. And that's what I did. I ate a plate of lettuce with mustard, which is basically water and mustard. And that kind of filled my stomach and I got through the prep. And then the end of the prep, the day I got to Dallas, and I remember having food poisoning on the Thursday and Friday because I ate some bad chicken. I remember the chicken too. I remember opening it. I packed it myself, chicken and rice. I remember opening it and it smelling a little funky, and I'm like, I gotta eat, man. So I ate it anyway. And then I remember that night I started puking. I puked all day Friday. And I went on stage flat as flat could be, but the most shredded I've ever been. But I do remember almost not going on stage. I remember laying backstage at Prejudge, shaking because I was dehydrated and flat and depleted and sick, and telling my wife, I don't know if I'm going to go out, man. And she's like, you better fucking go out because you got here. And she kind of coaxed me into it. And I walked out and did it. But that is the most shredded I've ever been. And probably the hardest prep I've ever been through. So yeah. Alexa Bond 3 says, would Hostile be as successful without the podcast? It seems like the connection you build with your audience translates into brand loyalty. Thank you for everything. You're welcome. And no, I don't. I think Hostile would be successful anyway because we have good products, good clothing. I like the way we do our marketing. I like the culture of Hostile that we've created. I think it would be a brand that would catch on. Do I think the podcast catapulted it forward much faster? 100%. I think people kind of like to know the owner of the company they're buying from. They like to know the culture. They like to know the behind the scenes stuff. They like to know how decisions are made. And I try and kind of bring that in when we're talking about the podcast. Sometimes I'll talk about doing new flavors or doing new clothing or some of the struggles we're having in the company or, bringing on athletes, losing athletes, all these things. Like you guys that watch a podcast have been part of that with me for the last 3 or 4 years. And I think from my own experience as a consumer, and I've told this story on the podcast before. I used to go to a restaurant that my a friend owned, and I kind of would go to see him, even though I did like the restaurant. So I just became a regular there. But when he stopped showing up, and I would go in, and it was just like a regular restaurant because he was not working there that much anymore. He had opened a second location or something. I kind of didn't want to go as much. So I feel like consumers feel more comfortable when they know where their product is coming from that they're buying, when they have a connection with the people that are selling them their product. Maybe they're a fan or they want to support me, so they want to buy the product because maybe they're happy with the podcast, so they in turn want to buy the product because I'm like, it's a kind of a give and take. But also, we've just created a community. Like it's become a community. I know a lot of the names I see in the YouTube comment sections. I know a lot of the names of the people that comment in my Instagram DMs and stuff, and they're kind of repeat people. So we've created this like little culture and community that I think definitely helps the brand move forward. Um, Stelliciousness it says, what's your favorite pair of shoes you currently own? Listen, I'm really bad with shoes. I know what I like, but I don't know the fucking names. So I'm gonna say I've been wearing a lot of Nike Jordan low tops. I don't know if they're dunk lows or they're this or they're that. I don't know. It's not like cars. Like I know all the names of cars. I don't know the names of shoes. I'm just gonna say low top Jordans, uh, like casual shoes, not sneakers, have been my favorite shoe as of late. They're a little bit wider, they're comfortable, and I feel like they look good with jeans and shit. So that's my go-to. Blake Resler says, "Is T3 T4 in the off season common?" I will say this: protocols have changed a lot since I was a pro. Even saying that though, and the guys I talk to, I don't know a lot of guys that use T3 T4 in the off season. I never did until this is the only way I'll say it does. And this is just my bro science opinion. So T3, T4 traditionally, for those of you who don't know, is a thyroid drug. Cytomel is a thyroid drug that helps increase your T3, which helps you increase your thyroid, which is going to help you burn fat. Basically, that's just in simplistic terms. So guys would start to use it in prep. So you might use a small amount, like 12 and a half micrograms to start. You might boost it up to 25. And in rare cases, you might go to 50 micrograms. If you're using more than 50 micrograms, you're probably using way too much. Your diet's not good enough, or you're not doing enough cardio or something, or maybe you have a genetic predisposition to being fat. I don't know, but I never needed more than 50. Most of the guys I know never needed more than 50. The average is usually 25, just to kind of give your T3 your thyroid a bump. Now, the only reason I would say sometimes in the off season is near the end of my career, there became some conversation about if you increase GH, you should increase thyroid at the same time. So in the latter part of my career, I started using T4, which is the precursor to T3. And T4 converts to T3 in your body. And so that was obviously a little bit better for me than being direct. So there became a period of time at the end of my career where if I was using like 6 IUs of growth hormone, I would add in some T4 because what the thought process was that if you elevate your GH, you need to elevate your thyroid at the same time to get the full benefit of all of it. I only did that for 1 or 2 seasons. Personally, I don't know if it was necessary. Like I said, you probably have to talk to a pharmacologist or somebody much more experienced than me. But if I was coaching somebody, for example, I probably wouldn't use T3 or T4 unless we were in a prep, and it would be a very small amount. Janik HK says, if you could do your bodybuilding career again, what would you do differently? Training, competitions, food, bulking, PDs. The broad answer is mentally, I would be more aware of what's going on and not try and just get from one show to the next because I didn't get to enjoy my career as much as I wanted to. You know, you do a lot of things as a cool things as a bodybuilder. You get to travel, you get to meet people, you get to go to expos and meet fans, and you get to do, meet and greet signings, and you get to do guest posing appearances and all these kind of cool things in different places. And I never really enjoyed those things as much as I should have. I was like, I just want to get back home and train so I can get better. People take that as kind of like an asshole thing. It wasn't really an asshole thing. It was more of, I just wanted to be the best bodybuilder I could be. And I felt like traveling was taking me away from that. Looking back at it though, that is what bodybuilding is. The traveling and the meeting people and it's all kind of encompassing. And I would have probably went about that a little differently if I could do it all over again. Now, going to the X's and O's, excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold. Going to the X's and O's of it, I probably would have taken less drugs. And I'm not just saying that because I'm older and whatever. I would have been ambitious. Trust me, I would have went hard. But there was a couple years there where I know I went too hard. I probably would have pulled back on that. That's number one. Number two, I would have got regular blood work and I would have listened to the right doctors. So I would have been on blood pressure medication much sooner, which probably would have saved my kidneys. That's a big one, because this bodybuilding thing is not healthy. If you do it to its full extent, if you want to be an open pro bodybuilder or even a classic guy or whatever, if you're trying to put on massive amounts of muscle, this is not a fucking healthy sport. You can mitigate some of the health risks, which is what I would have done differently. I would have tried to mitigate them slightly by taking some blood pressure medication earlier on, which would have saved me in my later years the hassle. So that's two. Three, I would have binged a lot less because your health is not just because, people like to point at drugs as the main culprit for health conditions that bodybuilders go through. And yes, they are a big part of it, but also the food we eat, the yo-yo dieting, the extreme bulking, because extreme bulking was more popular when I was a pro, probably in the early 2000s, right? That was kind of a normal thing, was to get just really, really big. You get 50, 60 pounds over your stage weight. That in that yo-yo dieting, in those binge days where you just take a whole day and you eat 10,000 calories, and this is a regular occurrence, those things are very, very hard on your body. So I would have been more mindful of my food. Now, would I have still bulked? Yes, because like I said, bodybuilding is not a healthy sport and you do have to walk that line. So I still would have bulked, maybe not 50, 60 pounds, maybe 30 or 40, just because I still believe in bulking. Binging, I would have got rid of. That's not something you need. It's not something that's going to help you. It was solely comfort food kind of thing, just me being a glutton, I guess. But those two things, the heavy, heavy drug use and the out of control eating, are two things that I think are really not necessarily helpful to your bodybuilding career and also are going to affect your health later on. So other than those two things, I kind of liked my training. I know my training was a little bit, in what people consider sloppy nowadays. But I actually liked the way I trained. I think it helped me build the body I built. I don't think my injuries necessarily are connected to my training. They could be. I don't want to be naive about it. But I think injuries, guys who are injury prone, I feel like it's kind of genetic because I've seen people, like you look at Branch Warren, that's also considered sloppy form. His injuries never came in the gym. That to me tells me that his genetics are built better, I guess, maybe stronger tendons, whatever you want to say. For me, I don't know if it's genetic or it's training. I've never been able to actually pinpoint what it was. Maybe it's a combination of both. But I like the way I trained. I don't think I would change much. Maybe I would slow it down a little bit in some ways, but mostly it's the food and the drugs. Okay. OG Lanza says USA versus EU versus Africa versus Middle East. Who wins in the open bodybuilding? USA strictly because of the amount of people. And if you think of the greatest physiques of all time, not I know you can pick out like Dorian Yates, Samson, you can pick out well, you could say Samson's from Africa too. So I mean, I don't know, but or you could pick out Rami or Hadi, from the Middle East or whatever. You can pick out some guys from the EU, like, Franco Colombo or like Mike Matarazzo or like some of these special people that come out of nowhere. But for the most part, the best physiques always come from the US. You look at like, and it doesn't mean just Mr. Olympias, right? But if you look at the 90s lineup, Jay Cutler, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Dexter Jackson, like these are all Hall of Fame. Lee Haney, like these guys are all Hall of Fame bodybuilders. And I think it's just a sheer volume of people. And the culture of bodybuilding is kind of, I think, maybe not now as much, but was always more USA than everywhere else. I think it's catching on now in other places, so maybe that will turn in future years. But as of right now, I would say the best physiques come from the USA as a whole. Not necessarily the best physiques ever, but like if you took a group, the depth of the lineup of the USA team would probably be the greatest. Phil Russo says, "Can you take Bob's place as an announcer at the O?" Pretty sure everyone was tired of. No, I can't. I've addressed that. No, I would never take that job. Island Scavenger Skulls says, "Does androgel still count as natty?" I don't know. Let's look it up. Androgel. What is androgel? This is my limited knowledge. Androgel, testosterone gel, 1%, 1.62% are controlled substances available by prescription. Nope, it does not make you natty. You're odd. I mean, as soon as you introduce testosterone to your body, like exogenous testosterone, you're no longer natural. Are you abusing steroids? No, that's not, you're not going to get massive testosterone boosts from androgel, but it is adding to your testosterone levels. So if you're in like a natural federation, that would be considered not natural. Blake Ressler says, "Would you take the position of athlete's representative if they offered it to you?" I would. I think I have a very good handle on what athletes go through. I should actually rephrase that. I don't know if I would. That's a big responsibility. It's easy to say because you're like, oh, well, I can help them get their hotels or help them get this or help them get healthcare or whatever like project that you would want to take on as athlete's representative. But there are things that probably are very tough, like getting Baruz a visa, getting Nathan Diasha cleared to go to the Olympia. Like these are things that an athlete representative would have to do. I don't know if I have the bandwidth for that. Like that's a serious job. I don't think it's as easy as like somebody just saying that the athlete's representative. Like if you look at different sporting federations, like the NHL hockey or NFL football, like the athlete's representative is a serious fucking job. You're taking care of hundreds, if not in some federations, thousands of athletes and their needs and wants. So if you look at the IFBB, let's say you got 100 open pros. Number one, you have to ask yourself, is the athlete's representative for everybody? Like, am I now taking on the responsibilities of classic and men's physique and wellness and bikini and figure? Like now you're talking about hundreds and thousands of athletes and all of their problems. I don't know if that's, this isn't to do that job properly. That would have to be a paid position that somebody does full time. And that's not what we have currently. If the athletes really wanted a representative, what they would have to do is say, okay, I pay, I don't know, I forget what the pro card fee is right now, $200, $250, something like that. Let's say it's $250. I pay $250 to the federation every year for my pro card. Well, I really think an athlete's representative is important, and I really want my needs heard, and I want somebody to represent me to the IFBB. So I'm going to pay also a separate fee of $20 a month, $10 a month, $30 a month. I don't know what you would have to, like, I don't know how many athletes would be involved and but it would have to be something that the person that's doing the job could live off of. Because in my opinion, if you're going to take care of 1,000 athletes or more, that's a full-time position. You're going to be getting emails all day long from so-and-so has this problem, so-and-so has that problem. That's not something you can run a podcast and a company and be the athlete's representative. That's something where it's kind of your full-time gig. And if not a full-time gig, it's like equal to your other gig. Like you're doing two things that are equally as important. I think what we have now is a very passive, like Bob is the informal athlete's representative. He'll help you if you reach out to him, but he's not being paid for it. Athletes aren't really, paying into a fund where they know they're going to get their results, their answers met, their questions met with answers. So I don't know. I would do it, but I don't think I could do it properly. So I don't know if I would be the right person for it. I think it would have to be somebody that doesn't really have any other jobs, or maybe has other jobs that aren't as demanding, and that person can get paid, a moderate or a modest salary from all of the athletes if they wanted it, and that person would take care of them. That's, I think, how you would have to do it so it's done properly, so that the athletes actually have somebody they can call. Because now that person works for you. If you're an athlete, if I'm paying the $20 a month, not that that's a ton of money. Like I'm just arbitrarily throwing that number out there. But if I'm paying $20 a month or $30 a month or $50 a month or $10 a month, whatever it is, then I know I'm paying that money so that I can reach out to so-and-so whenever I have to and say, hey, can we lobby for healthcare? Can we lobby for blood work? Can we lobby for the IFBB to streamline the lighting? Can we lobby for free photos or whatever the athletes might want? You would want to feel that you could reach out to that person and get what you wanted, and you deserve to because you've been paying into it. So I think that's how the position would have to be done if it was going to be done formally. Would Steve Granzella from Merrick Health says, would doing calf work 7 days per week increase size? What about testosterone calf injections? I don't think testosterone calf injections is the way to go. I think injecting into your calves is going to suck really badly. So I don't suggest it. I do think frequency, maybe 7 days a week is too much, but I do think frequency, and I've had Brad Schoenfeld on the podcast, which I reference often because he's a strength and conditioning scientist. He's written many books on the topic. He said that frequency is definitely a part of hypertrophy, and I do think from my own experience that frequency and calf training does help. I don't know if 7 days would work. I think it's an experiment you could try. I think 3 days a week at least is probably a good thing. But there are so many different opinions about calves and how to grow them. I'm not going to get into whether you should go heavy or light or high volume or pump, or all I know is frequency does work. So whatever your strategy for growing your calves, I think frequency is a good idea. Okay, let's see. This thing always goes back around in circles for some reason. John1631 says, what has been your favorite part of the podcast growing to where it is now and the community you've been able to build so far? My favorite part of the podcast, there's like a few different facets. So if I look at the selfish side of things first, the selfish side of things is very interesting to me because the podcast has helped me grow as a person. When you're in your own little bubble, it's kind of like, you ever hear people say like, oh, if you don't travel the world, then you don't really have any experiences to pull from. It's kind of the same thing. When you're in your own little bubble all the time, let's say you have 3 or 4 friends and you hang out all the time, and that's your whole group, and maybe you go to work and you have a group of friends there, and that's it. That's your world. You have 3 or 4 people you hang out with. You have a work friendships you have, and that's kind of your world. I think you only develop so much as a person unless you actively go out and read and try and develop more as a person and become more well-rounded. And that was me. I thought I knew everything. I was like, I'm so smart. I know everything about nutrition. I know everything about bodybuilding. I've been doing this for 10 years, blah, blah, blah. In my mid-30s, this is who I was. Then I met John Meadows. John taught me that you don't know shit. And even John himself, I would hear him talking to people and he would say, they would ask him a question. He'd say, I don't know. I'll have to look into it. I actually don't know the answer to that. that was very like liberating to see. Now, connecting that to the podcast, this is where I'm going with it. When you talk to people every week, I've had scientists on the podcast, I've had well-known coaches, I've had top athletes, I've had business people. When you talk to people that are the best in their field, or even just not necessarily the best, but just they're in your field and they have their own opinions, you start to realize really quickly that your opinion is not as valuable as you think it is. And you develop a level of humility that you would not have had you not talked to those people. So I think the biggest thing I've taken away on a selfish level is it's helped me grow as a person and understanding that other opinions matter. Other people have valid opinions that are very, very intelligent. And I have a lot of growing to do as a person. I think everybody has a lot of growing to do as a person. I think they just don't know it. And that's what I think I've been lucky enough to have is the podcast to talk to people to make me aware of my own shortcomings, which you'd think is a bad thing, but it's not. It actually allows you to like look inward and go, oh, okay, I can be better in this way or that way. That's the selfish side of things. The unselfish side of things, if that's a word, selfless side of things, is I get to help a ton of people. I get DMs on a daily basis, like slews of DMs from people saying, my mom passed and you helped me get through it with a laugh, or I didn't know anything about bodybuilding till I listened to you guys. And you guys, even though you're joking around, I get a lot of information out of your podcast. Just, things like me and my wife watch your podcast together and it's our ritual that we do once a week. And like these kind of things are really, really flattering and very, very fulfilling. I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? This is actually really helping people in certain ways, whether it be just entertaining, information, just passing the time, maybe feeling like they're connected and they have other people that are like them. Because a lot of messages I get from people that are like, they're very isolated. Maybe they live in a small town, or maybe their friends don't bodybuild, and this makes them feel like they're part of a community. So that's the selfless side of things where I'm like, yeah, this is really cool. Instead of going to personal train one person, I get to help thousands all at the same time. So yeah, there's a few different things. Like I can't really pinpoint one. Those are the two things that stand out most to me in my mind, but there are a whole slew of things that the podcast has given me that I would not have had in my life if it wasn't for the podcast. So I'm very thankful for what has happened. Blake Wrestler says, would Mike Sommerfeld from the Arnold edge out Chris at this year's O? I don't think so. Listen, I love Mike Sommerfeld's physique. I know we got into a debate on the last podcast about Mike and Logan, and I think people took my opinion wrong. I think Mike Sommerfeld's physique is phenomenal. I think he has a beautiful physique. I think he's complete from head to toe. But I think Chris's bone structure, the way his physique is built, I just personally don't think, you know, look, this is just my opinion. I'm not a judge. I'm not anybody special. I think Chris's physique to me is going to be very hard to beat no matter how long we do this bodybuilding thing, this classic physique thing. I think Chris's physique will always stand out as a very unique, different physique that kind of is in its own category. Chapa Ryan 23 says, how do you block out negativity from social media? This is a good question. This is a tough one. It's different for everybody. So I'm just going to tell you how I do it. I didn't for a long time. It took me a couple years probably of like I took a beating for a little while. Like when you're on top, and I hate to sound cocky, but the podcast was and maybe is still the biggest podcast in bodybuilding. Not the biggest channel. Obviously, there's channels like Derek from More Plates, More Dates and Greg Doucette, and like these guys have massive, massive channels. But as far as like strictly talking about bodybuilding and hardcore bodybuilding, I believe the podcast was the largest podcast in the industry and maybe still is. And I think when that happens, people are going to have their opinions about you. And that was hard for me at first because I thought I was doing a good thing. I'm like, hey, man, I'm doing this podcast. I'm trying to like elevate the bodybuilding community. I'm trying to give entertainment. Like, why are people upset? Right. But I think it's just the nature of things. People have their own opinions. They may not like your opinions, and that's totally okay. Do I think they do it in good faith? No. I think I think a lot of people you can have your own opinion about something and not necessarily be disrespectful or hateful towards somebody. And I think that's a lot of what I experienced. So it bothered me at first. I was like, why the fuck is this person such an asshole? Why can't they just disagree with me without being an asshole? And that was a struggle for me. But you become callous to things. Eventually, like these things happen so much and you get it from so many different angles that eventually you just realize that there's no way to please everybody. Okay. You can't. I saw a TikTok the other day that was really, really interesting. And I wish I would have saved it and shared it on my own profile. The guy was talking about just being who you are. And he was saying, it doesn't matter what you do, there is somebody on the flip side of it that doesn't like what you're doing. And that means what he was saying is like, look, if you dress really, really nice, people are going to say you're a snob and you're trying to show off. If you dress really, really bummy, people are going to say you're broke and you're unsuccessful. And every aspect he talked about had that flip side, right? If you drive a really, really nice car, oh, look, you're trying to show off. If you drive a really shit car, oh, you must be unsuccessful and you're a loser. Like you can't, whatever opinion you have, whatever thing you have in your, like whatever comes from you, there is going to be a person on the flip side that doesn't agree with what you're saying. The conversation we just had about Bob Cicherillo, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to agree with me, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me. Some people will make good faith videos and say, look, I don't really agree with that opinion. My opinion is this. Some people will make asshole videos and just say complete bullshit things and make lies up. What I've learned is that it doesn't really matter. None of it matters. And I've endured so many channels making videos about me and stuff. It's never really changed anything. My channel is the same size. My views are the same. It hasn't changed me as a person. So yeah, I just, it's part of life. I think it's part of, if you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to either show your physique or you're going to give your opinion, there's going to be somebody that judges you. And it's a hard part of bodybuilding for a lot of us to accept. Like we think that everybody should just understand how we're feeling, and they don't. If you post your physique and your physique sucks and someone says your physique sucks, you put your physique out there to be judged. And if you didn't want to be judged, you shouldn't put your physique out there. Does that make it easier? No. But when enough people tell you you suck, or enough people tell you you're great, or enough people challenge your opinion, or enough people like talk bad about you, eventually you learn that it's just noise and you become callous to it, and you actually it actually makes you stronger because you're like, okay, these are my opinions, and whoever doesn't like them, too bad. People are going to say what they want to say, but the people that ride with me, and that's all that matters. So my solution is I don't have a fucking solution. My solution is if you do it enough times and you experience enough bullshit, eventually your brain will just tune it out and it doesn't even affect you anymore. And you just be who you are, because no matter who you are, there is going to be somebody out there that doesn't like. There are going to be a whole bunch of people that love you, and those are the people you need to focus on. But there are going to be people that don't like you, and those are the people you just ignore and move on and don't worry about them. Ash Classic Physique lightens up the commentary with, did you used to wax your sack, back, and crack before competition? I'll say this. I never ever waxed my sack. I just couldn't. First of all, I'd be too embarrassed for it, because it was usually when I did used to go get waxed, it used to be a girl that did it. I didn't want her touching my sack. So that's for that's first. Second of all, waxing hurts like a bitch, and I don't want wax on my nuts. It's not that important. I can shave them. It's good enough for me. Have I waxed my have I waxed my crack in my back? Yes. Shamefully, I have to admit, or unshamefully, because it means I'm very, very hygienic. But yes, I have. And I try and keep that shit under control. So moving on from that. Joseba, one of our biggest fans. What would be your last meal if tomorrow was not guaranteed? I'm going to give you a cheesy answer. No pun intended. If I could only have one meal and tomorrow was not guaranteed, I would just want my favorite people in my life to be at that meal. Doesn't matter what the meal is. Preferably some type of Italian food like pasta, pizza would probably be my go-to, just if I'm being picky. But the more important part is I would want like my best friends, my family, my wife, obviously, like I'd want those people around me. Because that's kind of the more, what I've realized over time is the food is less important than the surroundings of the food. All right, we'll do a few more. There's so many here to go through. I'm sorry. Can you go into more about your carnivore diet experience, positive and negatives? Carnivore was very beneficial for me. There are a lot of positives to it. I don't think it's good for me now. I just need something more sustainable. I can't. I feel like I've never seen somebody on a keto diet or a carnivore diet that has nice looking round muscle. They get shredded. Muscle looks great, physique looks great, but it doesn't have that round look. And the performance in my performance in the gym personally suffered. I just think I need carbs for a number of reasons. One, just the sustainability of a diet. I need to have some sourdough. I need to have some rice. I need to have some pasta once in a while. It's just part of my life. It's the way I grew up. Two, I feel like the look of my physique is different. Three, my performance is different in the gym. These things kind of all, and I know people are going to say, well, if you would have stayed on carnivore long enough, your performance would have came back. Maybe that's true, but I still have yet to see a carnivore or keto physique that looks the way I want it to look. The positives are I never thought about food and I ate way less. Like I was eating 2 meals a day because I was so full. Because like one of my meals was like eggs, like an egg omelet, like a cheese and egg omelet, and I think avocado on the side, and I cooked it all in grass-fed butter. Like it's a lot of fat, and I was stuffed. I didn't even think about food. I didn't. The other thing is, I didn't even think about cravings. I wasn't craving like chips or anything. I was so full that I didn't care. And then my second meal of the day was usually like a big fucking ribeye, like a 16-ounce ribeye, and I would eat all the fat. You know, normally like you trim off like the heavier pieces of fat. I would eat all the fat. I would eat all the whole thing. Again, stuffed. I would, normally like for a lot of people, when you get to that 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock time at night, you kind of get like cravings for shit. Well, because I had eaten that steak and we cook it in butter as well, and I might even have a couple eggs with it, I just wasn't hungry. I wasn't craving anything. I could sit there all night long and not want to snack on anything. There's a lot of positives to the diet. I felt really good. I slept really, really good. Not the first week. I'm saying after like I got into it. My sleep was phenomenal. There are a lot of benefits. There are a lot of benefits. And I will say it's a much easier diet if you can stick to it than any other diet because you don't think about food as much. You're never fucking hungry. And you don't really have to count calories for some reason because you just can't eat enough to really break. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some people probably can, but I felt like I was never really counting my calories. I was never really worried about what I was eating. I was like, this is what I'm going to eat. This is going to fill me up and it's going to keep me full for a bunch of hours. That's good enough. I never really even counted what I was eating. I just made sure I got that meal in or the 2 meals in. Sometimes I would do 3 meals, but that was on like odd days. But I'm a big proponent of it. I just feel like it might not be for me. Uh, Cade Loveland says, do you think certain foods are necessary to cut out to get stage ready? Oh, this is going to be a controversial one for sure. Okay, calories in, calories out exists. Let me say that first. You can eat a muffin here and there and get shredded if your calories are, if you're in a deficit. Let's just get that out of the way. I feel like to be stage ready properly and to eliminate all variables, the way I know how to get ready for the stage, and most of the people I know that are successful that get on stage, is they eliminate every single variable throughout the day, which means if you're eating 4, 5, 6 meals a day, that calorie intake and food intake, the type of foods, is very, very consistent so that you know, okay, so I ate eggs, chicken, steak, whey protein, and then I finished the day with eggs or whatever. Let's say those are your 5 meals. I know that if Tuesday I switched and I'm only using, I know there's carbs and stuff, but I'm just using this as an example. I know that on Tuesday, if I switched my whey for another steak and I see what happens to my body, I'm like, oh, okay, this is the extra fats did this, the extra micronutrients that are in the steak did this. Look how I looked on Wednesday. I think when you're getting ready for a contest, it's very important to keep your foods the same so that when you make small changes, you can see what's happening to your physique. This food made me look more full. Food made me look more flat. This food bloated me. This food, didn't help for whatever reason. This food made my pumps insane. That kind of thing is very important. So when you're doing like an if it fits your macros type of diet in the last 4 weeks before a show, it can get very confusing if you're like, I ate a muffin for meal five. Well, how did that make me feel on Tuesday? Okay, well, today I don't want to eat a muffin. Today I'm going to eat four cookies instead. It's just you just don't know. They're not single ingredient foods. You don't know what in the cookie or what in the muffin, or you don't know why you're feeling a certain way. You don't know what foods, especially if one meal is different, that's not really that big a deal. But if all five of your meals are different all the fucking time and all you're worried about is the calorie intake, you're not really honing the look, in my opinion, the way you should be. You are going to get shredded if you're in a deficit, but are you getting the maximum out of your physique? How many calories in that muffin were wasted on sugar, for example, that you don't need, or fats that you don't need, or whatever, right? When you could change that for single ingredient food and you can measure exactly how much fat, exactly how much sugar you need, et cetera, et cetera. And this is something I had Lane Norton on the podcast before we discussed. And even Lane, who is a proponent of if it fits your macros, even Lane said that in extreme cases, like getting ready for a contest, in the last 4 weeks, and I think it's in the podcast if you want to go back and watch it. In the last 4 weeks, you really want to know all of your micronutrients and macronutrients that are going into your body so that you can really hone the way your body looks, your water levels, your fat levels, all these things, your pump, the muscle. Does the muscle look full? Does the muscle look flat? Like, is this bloating me? Is it not bloating me? All these things are very, very sensitive in that last 4 weeks. And I think that's why it's very important to be consistent with the foods you're eating and use foods that you can measure properly so that you know exactly what you're getting all the time. And it's very, very consistent. Okay, let's kind of go through a little bit more here and then we'll wrap it up. How much does renting a booth at the Arnold cost? That varies from $10,000 to $1 million. It really depends on the size. Depends on the size of the space you want. Do you want a 10 by 10 booth? Do you want a 80 by 30 booth? Do you want to build 2 floors in your booth? Do you want one floor? Do you want closet space? Do you want TVs? Do you want, like, there's so many things that go into a booth, but it ranges the price could escalate greatly. So when you see a booth like, what booth? Like the Mutant booth. When I look at the Mutant booth, they got like a stage there with a microphone, and then they have, shelving built in and closet space and like all this stuff built into their booth. I'm like, that's I don't know. I don't know what, like, I don't want to put a number on it because I don't know, but if I had to guess, I'd be like, what is that? Like $250,000, $500,000? By the time you're done, by the time everything's done, I don't know. It's not a cheap thing to do. It's very expensive and takes a lot of time and a lot of planning. Let's see. Dylan Cannon says, different one. What's your take on how most people will do crazy things in bed, but God forbid you use my toothbrush? That's actually kind of funny. It's very, very true. I would say because when people are having sex, if you're doing it right, if you're doing it right, you're in kind of like an animalistic phase, a basic, very basic needs phase, and you don't give a fuck about germs or anything else because your mind is somewhere else. You're like, I don't really care what is going on at this point. I'm just going to do what feels good. That's how it should be. If you're worried, if you're worried about germs and shit when you're having sex, I think you're doing it wrong, personally. When you're brushing your teeth, though, you're not in that mental state. So you can think clearly about germs and like, Now, that being said, I've used my wife's toothbrush, so I'm not like, I don't think it's that big a deal. Uh, I don't make it a habit, but like if I don't know, for some reason we're traveling somewhere and I forgot my toothbrush, I will use my wife's toothbrush. So I'm not like crazy like that either. But I do get your sentiment, and I personally think it's just because your mind shifts when when you're sexually aroused and you're in that state. You want to please the other person. You want to be pleased. You're not going to be like, what are you going to do? If your fucking girl's like, spit in my mouth, you're not, you're not going to be like, oh no, honey, there's too many germs. I don't think we should do that. You're just going to kill the fucking mood. So you just do it. You just do whatever it is that makes the other person happy. And that's how it works. And it doesn't work the same when you're using someone's toothbrush. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. Okay, I promise the last one. What is something you learned from bodybuilding? Wait, what's this other one here? What's the one thing you do differently business wise with everything being in the public eye? Also love the podcast. Thanks for, oh, I don't know. That's a tough one. What's this one up here? What is something you learned from bodybuilding that no other sport could have taught you? And you can't say discipline because you need that in every sport to reach the very top. Well, you just took away the main one. What the fuck? What did bodybuilding teach me? Consistency. Ah, that's another, and I know you need that in other sports too, but bodybuilding taught me that, a lot of guys like will train their ass off Monday to Friday, Friday at like 8 o'clock. And then 8 o'clock rolls around and they're at the club. Saturday night, they're at the club. Sunday, they're like hungover or whatever. So they're like, oh, I'm taking a day off. I'm just going to eat whatever I want. A lot of people are like that. I'm not saying, people who are serious aren't like that, but I met a lot of people in my life that were like that. They wanted to look good. They weren't competitive bodybuilders. They just wanted to train really hard. They wanted to put on a lot of muscle. They didn't want to compete necessarily. And they would work really, really hard, but they didn't want to give up any of their social life or anything like that. And that's fine. If that's, your goal is not to compete, then obviously you don't want to like sacrifice your social life or whatever. But for me, I realized really quickly that if you want to be your best, then it takes a lot of consistency because that 5 days a week is great, but it doesn't take long to erase the 5 days a week. So if you're 100% Monday through Friday, and then Friday at 8 o'clock to Sunday night, you're 50%. How much gains did you make that week? You know what I mean? Like you took 10 steps forward and you took 7 steps back. Okay. You walked forward 3 feet. If that's all you want to do is walk forward 3 feet, great. You're doing that. If you're worried about making incremental gains, you don't care about maximizing them, awesome. You still move forward 3 feet. But if you want to move forward, if you want all 10 feet to count, what bodybuilding taught me was you can't take a day off. When you take a day off, especially at the highest level, like it's not even, you know what? I shouldn't even say that. It's not even the highest level. When you're trying to get the most out of your own physique, when you're trying to get the most out of yourself, whether it's physique, business, school, whatever it is, when you're trying to get the most out of yourself, the second you take your foot off the gas, you go backwards. Now, for some people, that's okay to go back a little bit. Let's say you go forward 10 feet. You're like, I need a breather. And you go back 1 foot. That's okay. Some people will take that. I've done that. I've done that many times. I've gone 10 feet and then walked back 2. I still made an 8 foot gain. Awesome. But that's what bodybuilding taught me is that every day counts. Every decision counts. Every decision will either keep moving you forward or set you back. And it just depends how far back did that decision set you? Did you make such a bad decision that you stepped all the way back the whole 10 feet? Or was it just a small decision and it gave you a little break and you stepped back 2 feet? Or are you one of these people that can keep their foot on the gas nonstop and is just cranking out 10 footers every single week? You see what I'm saying? So it's like the consistency aspect is as important as the discipline aspect in bodybuilding. And I would say that's the main thing it taught me because I can translate that over into my work. So when people say like, man, you've been cranking out podcasts for 5 years and aren't you bored? And aren't you like, I'm like, no, one, because I like doing it. Two, it's very fulfilling. And three, I also know it takes consistency to build a platform. So every week for 5 years, I believe it's been 5 years now. Every week for 5 years, I'm at least doing one podcast. Most of the time, two, sometimes three. So this is a consistency that you have to keep going with. And that's, I think, what bodybuilding has taught me. And it's the same thing in business. You can't stop. Okay, you put out some nice clothing. Okay, cool. What have you done for me lately? What's next? What's the next launch? What's the next supplement flavor? What's the next? It's a constant, the consistency is what drives your business. The consistency is what drives your physique. The consistency is what drives your mental growth. Taking your foot off the gas is always going to slow you down, obviously. It just depends how far you slow down and how much. Is it calculated or not calculated? Did you calculate, you know what? I need a couple feet. I need a couple tickets, a couple steps back. I need to breathe. That's fine too. Those calculated decisions are totally fine. I'm just, I think it's just important to know that you've calculated them and you're not fooling yourself. Because I think a lot of those guys that train the 5 days a week and then take the weekend off are fooling themselves and thinking that they're making great gains when really they could be catapulting their gains if they uh, focused a little bit more. So anyway, okay, guys, I'm going to wrap it there. There's a ton more questions. Maybe I'll do a part two. I don't know. But I've been on for probably over an hour now. So I'm going to wrap it there. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And Bro Chat will be coming this week. Bodybuilding and Bollocks will be coming this week. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to show you really quickly. If you go to my YouTube channel, let me show you guys this. I don't know if a lot of you know about this. First of all, if you can click the bell to get notifications. I don't even know where the bell is. But anyway, also subscribe to the channel if you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, because I know there's a lot of people that are. But you can click videos, right? And this will show you all the videos I've done. But if you click live, I've been doing live podcasts for Bodybuilding Bollocks for the last, I don't know, however long. So all of these are in the live section. They won't show up if you just click video. You have to actually click the live tab to get to these ones, and you can watch all of these. They're actually very, very good. Stefan has been a great addition to the Bodybuilding and Bollocks podcast with James and Ben. We've been having a lot of fun. So you can check that out there. The other thing I want to say, if you click on playlists, a lot of people ask me, like, can you interview this person or that person? If you click on playlists and you go to, where is it? Real Bodybuilding Podcast here. Okay. I'm waiting for this pop up. If you go here, you can see all of the people that well, sorry guys. You can see all of the people that I've interviewed here: Sam, Dorian Yates, Flex Lewis, Jeff Nippard, Jordan Peters. It goes all the way, Broderick Chavez. I got some with John and Jay in there. There's some really, really good interviews in here. There's Chris, Matt, Lee Priest, Kevin Lavroni. There's some really good, Evan's in here. I did one with Evan and John. Anyway, there's some really, really, really good ones in here. Here's a Patrick Tour one, Chris Aceto. So if you wanted me to interview somebody one-on-one, check that playlist first, because most likely I've gotten most of the prominent people in the industry on that, interviewed on that playlist. And there's some very, very good interviews in there. So check them out. But guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you later this week.